What qualities do we think are most important in raising a mentally and emotionally healthy child?
I'm gonna go on this just because it's already on my mind. Um, you said to raise a mentally and emotionally healthy child.
Yes.
I say patience. I would say patience and what's that? Patience and adaptability, basically. In a
Mm.
sense that, obviously with a child, it's a new experience. Me, it's a new experience. I mean, I've dealt with children, but dealing with your own is different.
For
Um,
sure.
there's going to be times where they, obviously, when they're newborns, wake up in the middle of the night. Gotta feed them, gotta change them. Some parents, they children wake up screaming, bawling their eyes out like they finna die. Mine gracefully didn't really develop a cry until he was about 1 month, going on 2.5. So, but it was still, dealing with the sleep deprivation and
Hmm.
the putting your foot down and be like, I have to get up, I have to do this, I have to nurture my child. The patience it took with that, and just like the development as a child, as a toddler. People talk about terrible twos and things of that nature. I don't really think it's 100% terrible. I think it's just about how like you perceive it and how like patient you're going to allow yourself to be, because kids are going through the emotional side. Going, they're conceptualizing their own emotions now. So they're going to throw tantrums. They're going to cry.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
going to be loud and scream because they can. It makes them laugh. It makes them giggle. So I think the patience part is being an observer, watching your child, watching their triggers, watching the things that will affect them, that make them laugh, that make them upset, that make them you know uh just be them. Like watch them be them, and then the adaptability comes in where if they throw a tantrum or that nature, to be able to you know ask, just have a conversation with them. Like, even though if it's not going to be clear, spoken English, sit there and you be like, what's wrong? Just talk to me. Take them to a breathing technique, like blowing out candles, just something visually they can do to help them, realize their emotion. And I feel like building off of that, or just implementing those small things you can do, helps to like teach them how to properly handle their emotions, rather than them being upset and you yelling at them. Now they feel like they are in trouble because they're upset, not really understanding why they're upset. Now you're yelling at them because they're upset, not knowing they're upset. So I think the adaptability comes in where it's just creating different ways to guide their emotions and letting them know the feelings that they're feeling, and having that openness of talking and being patient and just being there.
Patience is a practice. Oh,
Mhm.
man. I come back a lot of times to just letting myself know that as patient as I would like to be, there still has to be some firmness, some boundaries set, because children push the
They're gonna
try to push
test
it to
you.
the limit. Yeah, 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 for sure. They're gonna push you, and
You said, stop trying to find a nice way to say it. They don't listen.
not in a right,
And
not in a way where it's like they're just trying to be bad for being bad's sake, but because they need to be taught how to behave. So sometimes my son's mom will say, "Oh, he doesn't do this, he doesn't make up that, or he doesn't put his clothes away," but we haven't shown him. So that's the time we got to put our foot down and say, you know what? We got to do this like this, so that way it's something that he's receiving consistent instructions on, so that way he knows how to show up.
Yeah.
So while we're patient, because that is key. Patience is probably top of the line. We also need to mix in there some firmness and boundaries as well.
I feel like what you
Firm
just
but
said.
fair.
Oh, go ahead. Firm to fair. Yeah,
Man,
that's
firm
cool.
but fair, like Joe Cortez used to say. Joe Cortez, he was a Hall of Fame boxing referee. He always give the instruction. He said, I'm firm but fair."
Mm-hmm.
And to the point about giving the instruction, another thing I always have to say to myself, my kids aren't necessarily testing me. I can't take
Mm.
it personal. They just exploring, especially my son, you know, him being 6 years old. My wife was just saying to me earlier today, all he want to do is just go outside. For me, if I don't want to be bothered, now I'm looking at it like he's trying to inconvenience me, like he's being meddlesome. He ain't being meddlesome. He just want to go outside. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
day. The sky is blue. The sun is out. The birds are chirping. He wants to go outside, ride a scooter, ride a bike with one of the neighbors. It's not a personal attack. It's not an attempt to throw a monkey wrench in whatever program I have going on for the day. All he knows is a beautiful day outside. He wants to experience it. So that's another thing that I had to learn too, is not to take these things personal,
Mm.
you know, and to give them grace. And I thought that Tone said something that was extremely important, that grace, and not making projections, you know, because oftentimes as parents, we just feel like they're testing us, but such is not the case. They're just being active. They're just trying to burn off energy. They're moving off impulse.
Mm-hmm.
They're not moving with the same level of consciousness that we are.
Right.
And also to your point, about giving certain instruction, we also have to take this into account. Most of us have 20 and 30 and
Yeah.
40 years more experience than our children do.
Drop that
So
expectation.
things that come naturally to us at this point, these are things that have been ingrained in us God knows how many decades ago, and this is brand new to them.
That's
So
a
you're
good
gonna have
point.
to remind them. Like, say to my son all the time, I find myself getting frustrated. So, yo, how many times I gotta tell you to clean up after yourself? But I'm 37, he's 6 years old.
That's a good point. Oh, I can't wait to use that point.
Yeah, it's that natural expectation for them to know what to do rather than,
Right.
showing them what to do. It's, yeah.
We expect them to behave as though they have the experience that we do.
Yo.
But they don't. So you just gotta give them grace and not take things personally.
That patience, man.
We're not trying to be a nuisance.
I see that with my daughters right now, actually, that I have to say to them, I actually said it to the eldest the other day, that because they're so intuitive and intelligent and all these things, I have to remember you've only lived for 18 years. You know, you haven't got the life experience to know how to do certain things, but because having older children, because they are so good at doing stuff, you know, I can just think, why aren't you just doing that? Do you know what I'm saying? And I wanted to say as well, it just feels so nice to hear the masculine voices, to hear the fathers, because you come from a different place. You know what I'm saying? And when I was with my daughter's dad, when we were still together, there were things that he forced through that I wouldn't have forced through, like getting the baby out of the bedroom. Like, I would have kept her in there till she was 5, but he was like, it's time for her to go into her own room now. We need to move the cot out. And I'm like, no, I want to. But he moved the cot out and it was better for her. You know, there were a lot of things that he did pushing their development that me as mom was going, no, no, no. Like, one of the things he was very good at was cooking with them. And he'd have them on a footstool in the kitchen and they'd be over. I wasn't as confident to be as safe as dad was, you know what I mean? You have them building stuff and hammering stuff, and they just love that. You know, the balance, if you can have it, is so beautiful and so necessary. And there's just a different authority that dad has, because I think that masculine voice as well doesn't require the raising of a voice. You know, like moms shout. I don't know a mom that doesn't shout, and I don't know a mom that doesn't. Children test their moms to a level you would not believe. I'll tell you that as a mother. But a dad can go, oi, and it's finished. A mom can go, oi, and they go, yeah, whatever. They're climbing on your back and they're pulling your hair. But when daddy says it, or a masculine energy says it, totally different response.
Yeah, for sure. I can say that with my experience too, just with my kids, especially with my son. whenever things are getting testy in the morning, we trying to get out the door, I ask him, and I try to be real firm with him. I ask him, hey, what type of day you want to have today? You make the decision right now, and I'll accommodate you. Because if you want it to be a rough morning, then it could be a rough morning. Otherwise, it could be smooth. We could be the best of friends. We could be chummy. Everything could be smooth, hunky dory. But you let me know, like, how we playing this today. And then more often than not, when I ask him that question, he's like, yeah, I want to have a good day.
Yeah, I'm taking that. I'm taking that and using that.
Put that in your toolkit.
Yeah.
That's a good one right there, right?
What was the, like, what was the question again? Like, I'm trying to have it right in my head.
I'll ask it again. What qualities do you think are most important in raising mentally and emotionally healthy children?
So my question is that like qualities for the individual raising, or the qualities to instill in that child or that individual?
Yeah, to instill in them when raising them.
Oh, to instill in them when raising them. Okay,
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah, okay. So I want to say communication. I definitely want to say that. Like, first of all, of course, patience, I feel like is, but I want to say communication, definitely communication, and I don't like empathy is, I don't know if it's empathy, but understanding, you know what I'm saying? So communication and fairness, because the way I see it, I want my child to go out into the world, and no matter if an individual is on a spectrum, is not so nice, is like, I want my child to be able to know how to handle and understand situations, and not like go into a situation, be uncomfortable and lash out or move in a certain way. I want my child to be able to assess the situation, communicate in that circumstance or that situation, and have a fuller understanding before they make any interactions. I feel like a lot of things can be prevented if communication is more clear. If there's a clearer line of communication or understanding mixed with some understanding, and I think a lot of things could be avoided, a lot of things could grow, a lot of things could be so much more different through those things.
Right,
you know
because
what I'm saying?
when you have clear communication, it leads to that understanding, right? And we understand that it's not so much that we don't want to have talks that we might not agree with, but when those things do come up, we're communicating effectively.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. 100%. Because you know, like, if you, I can only keep bringing up my friend because I love Blue so much, and I'm actively in his life right now. Like, I'm like co-parenting, like, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like with the communication, like, you know, we're talking about the whole yelling thing, or like you feel as a parent like, oh, I don't really feel like you being a certain way and you lashing out. Like, now that kid, like, that communication is starting to like have cracks in it, because now they're going to have fears to come to you to say certain things, because now they expecting or whatever. If you don't like something that they do, the first thing you're going to do is yell or hit or whatever. That, so I feel like communication starts getting cracked in those instances. So I feel like it's important, because you want your kid, if they're going through something, or you know what I'm saying, or they hurting, or as they're getting older, you want them to be able to communicate that with you. You know what I'm saying? If you want them to be a lawyer and they really want to be a scientist or whatever, and you want them to be able to communicate with that and not be afraid that, you know, they're going to disappoint you, so they have to waste $30,000 of your dollars, you know what I'm saying, knowing that they're not going to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, but I feel like in that sense, like, communication for sure. And exactly what you said, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because
miscommunication could be expensive when we thinking about $30,000.
It can lead to prison. Expensive still. Expensive.
Or maybe not even monetary. It could also be, like you said, breaks in the communication. It could cause fractures in relationships. Because you got to take into account, you know, it's not just about them being able to express themselves, but feeling safe.
Yeah.
If I'm thinking that you're going to have a certain response, then what does that lead to? It opens more room for dishonesty. And then now with dishonesty, now you got distrust. I feel like I got to lie to you now because I'm afraid of what your response is going to be. And then now you're upset with me for lying to you.
Yeah, I can go off that.
And then now the relationship is fractured at that point.
I could definitely go off that because I would say, like, me growing up as a youngest, I was a little. Yeah, here. Me being a little troublemaker when I was little, I always get in trouble. So it's like, to avoid me like getting in serious trouble, I always used to, you know, mix up some things, lie, just because it wasn't like a heavy set, you know. I never felt like there was a heavy set of communication. Like there was no, it didn't feel as open. And like growing up, hearing that part of dishonesty, I have a little bad habit of lying just impulsively because I used to get in trouble so much. So that essence of communication and you putting it together, and that's key. Okay.
Yeah, and I would like to add that, you know, there's been, because the Most High sat me down and forced me to be part-time and to put certain things down, because trying to do them was taking my attention off the children and it was creating stress in me as well. But I've got so many examples of them growing up where, because we talk extensively every day on the bus journey home, and you know, the bus journey to school and the bus journey home from school was where we'd talk, and there's so many things that they just told me that meant I was able to support them. You know what I mean? So like, for example, one time my eldest burst into tears after we'd done Kung Fu, and I said, what's wrong with you? Because she never used to cry that much as a small child. A teacher had called her a bully at school. She was about 9 at the time. And I told her, you can have your boundaries. You don't have to play with everybody. If you don't feel like their energy is good or that they're mean or whatever, you can say no. So that's what they did with a child that was a prolific bully. Her mate had said, no, we don't want you to play today. And she literally is the most unbullying child. You know what I mean? She will befriend the vulnerable kid. So I'm like, you are. So I went down to school anyway. I had this conversation with this passive aggressive teacher. But so many times where they've just offloaded this stuff on me, and I can then take action. But it is just like you say, Synthonia, it's having a regular space for open communication. And I also, with my upbringing, there's many times, there was one time they said to me, they mentioned twerking. I think they're about 8 and 9. And I was like, well, you know about twerking, show me. And they went, and I was like, okay, you don't know what twerking is. You think you know, but you know, that's the main thing, that's all right. But you know, it's that. And another time I said to them, do you like swear? And they all started telling me that they swore. It was them and their little cousin. And you just have to hold back your reaction that is intuitive almost for me, from my upbringing, from my strict Caribbean upbringing. I have to, sometimes I'm like, you know, they're like, do you like a boy? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, you know, what mum would have done, listen, you know. But you hit the nail on the head really with that, Synthonia, because it is core to everything. Because if they're bottling stuff up, that's the poison, you know.
Oh yeah.
To your point, I think, to double down on the communication bit of it, and truthfully everything that you guys have touched on, is making sure that kids understand that you're a human first. Because there's always there seems to be like a stigma of children putting their parents rather on a pedestal and kind of seeing them as a little bit more than human. I think allowing kids to see you cry, to see you have genuine emotion, to be honest, you know, like you are, truthfully, Caroline, a lot of the time with your daughter. I think that's the reason why they're so open with you, is because you allow them to see you as a human being first, who's also still progressing in life and learning. I think that bit is important for a lot of people to see. I didn't get that as a child, and I think that causes certain deficits that you have to learn on your own. And if we see our parents as human first, we're more likely to, get away from that.
Duly noted. My son thinks I don't cry. He expressed that to me, and I was like, wow. So, not that I'm going to just start bawling in front of him, but to express emotion in the human way is something that I'm taking away from this conversation. And
let me ask you a question. I'm sorry to interrupt, but was that intentional for you, or is this something that like you just never had or what did you like? You just felt like he didn't need to see that?
It wasn't something that was intentional. More so.
That's interesting.
Just.
Was that the way you were raised?
Well, my father passed when I was young, so I didn't have that male figure, even when we were around our uncles, that showed emotion in that way. But
that's why
we get told a lot that a man is this, a man is that, or whatever. And I don't know if maybe it is those things from my environment that has shown me how to be, which has led me to show up as the person that my son sees me as, which is not who I am. It's just his experience of me. So I know that there's still more to give him that I may be holding back.
That's why I asked that question. My dad was also raised that way. Like, you're not supposed to show emotion. You're supposed to present as the alpha male, and that's the only example of masculinity. So that's something that we've actually worked on together as adults. That's why it's like, that was his perspective that he presented to me. He wished that he was more, human when raising me as well as my siblings, and doing his best to do that. And maybe even in conversations with his baby mothers and whatnot, maybe that would have presented a different outcome. Maybe don't put on a front and maybe show these kids who we are, like, so they know who we are and not just parts of us.
Oh, for sure.
I thought that was a beautiful point, in conversation with them.
I learned that from my mom with her when we did the Windrush interviews and they started to open up. My mom and my aunt were like what you're saying, I. And it was cultural, and it was to do with coming from another country to England and having to get on with it. That was my aunt's mantra, actually. And my uncle said that at her funeral, get on with it. You know what I mean? So I only saw my mom cry when her grandmother passed away and when my younger sister was sick. They were the only times I ever saw my mom cry. And what I came to realize later on was that they developed that through survival mode, so similarly as a woman, my nature, I'm a Cancerian woman and I'm very emotional. So that was the goddess had a heart and nose, you know what I mean? And I'll cry at the drop of a hat, you know what I mean? It was like, here, coming on camera, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, so I was alien in my family because I was seen as wild almost, because I've got these big emotional reactions to things, but then over time, I've kind of taught my mom to relax a bit. She's learnt from me. Do you know what I'm saying? So like you've said, it's important. I have had to, and I did have senses of guilt in the beginning, but then I did come to the realization, like you said, that me just being true to myself was releasing my children. Because my instinct was to be like mom and go, you shouldn't be crying around them, but then it was just like, no, because I'm not going to hide off in a room when this is happening. They need to know that this is happening, and then we need to have a conversation. Why mommy's crying?
It goes into, you gotta be able to back it up. How can you ask your children, or the ones that you're helping raise, to come to you when they have these feelings if you cannot do the same? You cannot ask that of them. It's like, you can open up to me, well, you don't open up to me. So it makes it seem like because I'm this age that it doesn't matter, that it's not seen as still equal. So if they don't see it from you, how will they know whether or not it's healthy? Or if they can only do that with you, then maybe they won't ever feel comfortable doing it with somebody outside of the family, with friends or their other loved ones or the relationships that they built, because they may not just know that it's okay to do if you don't feel like it's just okay to do when the time calls. So
I have a question about to that, because that is I never thought about that, Adrian. I think that's like I never thought, like, why do parents hide things from like that from their kids, right? So and so what you're saying, my question is, I'm like, dang, that's good. I'm looking for things to bring up points, you know what I'm saying, on my next argument. So but the thing is, how do you know when is there a point where it's like, what's the spectrum on that? When is the point where you might be stressing your kid out with information? You know what I'm saying? Like, so like I don't know how I should ask this question.
I think that comes to an individual case-by-case basis, depending on who you are, how you are, and what the dynamic that you're building within your family, and then what the situation is. If something is just genuinely making you sad, maybe you're sitting around and the tears shed, or they ask why you're crying, or something is stressing you out and you're just sitting with that, okay, this is a lot of pressure, and the tears just fall. Okay, why are you crying? You can express that. But if you really need the mental breakdown moment where you almost want to scream type of cry, and we know what those are for us, you can have that discernment of which ones are okay and which ones you just probably need a moment.
No, I'm saying I knew I was like not asking it the way I was thinking it. Like, I know, like, the different temperaments, like I ain't, like, certain things you're not gonna want your kid to see, but like, say, like, okay, so to use your example, so if and like, say a mother or a parent is depressed, and they're all sad, so now the child goes to them and they're like, mommy or daddy, what's wrong? And you know, this is how they feel, and then tomorrow, then 2 days,
then it's 2 days, then it's again, so then it's constant.
Like, yes, exactly. So it's like, at that point, it's like, do you still be real with that kid, like, or do you now like be like, all right, I told you how I feel, like, so when you see me like this now, like, I'm like, don't act like, I don't know, like, I don't know how to act.
You've got to have your moments. You've got to be appropriate. You have to read. You know, you don't got. It's that's the whole thing with parenthood across the board. Do you know what I mean? How do you know when you've given them too much sweets? How do you know when
boom, all right, that's cool, you got me, that's good, all right,
when you've got that balance in yourself?
Like, you gotta gauge it on an intuitive level.
Yeah, because there were definitely times when me and my ex separated, and that transition, and the girls were adjusting, and you know, because they were very emotional at that time as well. I actually had to put a lid on it after a year, because we talked about it and I coached them and I helped them, and then it was like, it's happened, we have to move forward, we can't keep dwelling on it. And there were definitely times where I was away from them, crying and adjusting, you know what I'm saying, because I know I'm going to traumatize my youth with this. They don't need to see mummy broken down. And we know within ourselves, like, you can't be, if you're a depressed parent with a child around you and you're always depressed, you will damage them.
Yes.
And then you'll give them some of that. And I like what you said there, because that leads me into the next question of, how has your relationship with your parents influenced your approach to well-being today? Just as you were saying, if you're constantly exuding the depression, that not only can damage them, but then they'll pick up on that, and they can accidentally form that identity of somebody who is just sullen and depressed if they adapt it too early, and then not know that that's not the normal, because they'll see you behave in that way and think that is normal, or whatever the behavior is, or somebody that's hyper aggressive. they'll think that the hyper aggressive way is the normal way, not that they intentionally mean to do it, but that's what it is because that's what I saw.